Michael Person, and to have another forum put on by Gungahlin Community Council. I don't think there's a stronger community council than Gungahlin Community Council. Peter, that's credit to you and the others working with you for creating a community council that has done such a fabulous job of surfacing a whole lot of important issues. I think about when I first came into Parliament and we were looking at where to start the national broadband network rollout in the ACT. And it was strong pressure from the Gungahlin Community Council that led us to start building the NBN from Gungahlin. I remember going down and helping switch on the national broadband network for the ACT in Gungahlin Library. Because of long-standing infrastructure issues here, we decided that was the place to start. Light rail began again in Gungahlin, thanks in large part to the hard work of residents making a strong case that we needed better transport infrastructure here. And the federal investment in the Majura Parkway, the biggest one-off federal commitment to infrastructure in ACT history, was designed very much to ensure that people in Gungahlin could more easily travel through to the south side. An investment of that scale is yet to be matched, and that of course was put in place under the last Labor government. As soon as there was a change of government, I immediately wrote to all federal ministers calling on them to see the great beauty of Gungahlin, as we do, as a place to expand the footprint for the federal public service. I got back a surprising number of knockbacks. People like Angus Taylor and Malcolm Turnbull wrote back to explain why, for one reason or another, it wasn't possible to relocate a federal department or part of it to the town centre. We kept on campaigning. We did a community petition calling on agencies to consider a move to Gungahlin, and I was really pleased when Defence Housing Authority opened up here in the Gungahlin town centre. We've got that important infrastructure here, and we've seen under the last few years that steady growth in Gungahlin. It used to be the case that this was a shopping centre which was vibrant on weekends, but pretty sleepy during the week. I've been really pleased to say that it's increasingly become much more vibrant during the week. I don't want to take any credit for having moved my electorate office here during that period, but it's fabulous to see the energy that's increasingly in the Gungahlin town centre. If we're elected on May the 21st, we intend to be a reforming Labor government. A Labor government that will prioritise infrastructure spending based on true cost-benefit analysis, not political pork barrelling. A government that will put care back into what Australians need through investments in aged care, child care, and a reform of the National Disability Insurance Scheme. A federal government that will work with the federal public service, removing the arbitrary public service cap and the arbitrary wage cap in order to return to the tradition of frank and fearless advice. A federal government that will see investing in our young people and investing in our universities as being critical to building a stronger and a smarter nation. The next election is also a referendum. It's a referendum on a tired government that's run out of puff and run out of ideas. A government that won't put in place a National Integrity Commission because it knows the members of the front bench would be among the first in front of it. We're asking for your support at the next election. I'm asking for your support to be returned as member for Fenner. And I want to thank again the Gungahlin Community Council for putting on this terrific forum tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Thanks very much, Andrew. Second speaker we have, candidate for Fenner, is Nathan Kuster from the Little Pipe.
Okay, first off, I want to thank Peter and the GCC team for this invitation to a candidate forum and for granting me the opportunity to discuss what the Liberal Party has to offer for the electorate of Fenner. I'll start by giving you a bit of background about myself. See, I was born and raised in the electorate of Fenner, or Fraser as it used to be. But now I call Gungahlin my home, once again in Fenner. I've never left the jurisdiction. After leaving school, I studied law at the University of Canberra before becoming a lawyer in the local area. I practice in civil litigation, building and construction law, and bankruptcy and insolvency. I service the ACT among other regions within Australia. I now own and operate my own law firm, and I employ 10 local residents here. I also employ a number of local law students, and I'm proud to say I'm giving them the same opportunities that were afforded to me, and hopefully they start their careers here and maintain their careers here in the ACT. You see, I'm a local and I'm passionate about Canberra, small business and the community here. I see real potential with the right investment and supports for our community that can provide for the business environment so that the electorate of Fenner can grow and provide opportunities for individuals to get ahead like I did, to build strong careers here and to raise families here. So that's one of the main reasons I've put my hand up to run for the seat of Fenner. You see, this election, there is a clear choice, but there are also real consequences as the result of this election on May 21. The Morrison government has been delivering a strong economy and is delivering a strong future for all Australians. The pandemic has been tough for businesses and also individuals. Here out in the electorate, I've heard firsthand the struggles of all of the business community. It's also noted that my business itself suffered during the pandemic. You see, the JobKeeper payment kept my business going, and it also kept 700,000 jobs, I might say, from being lost during the COVID pandemic. It was a great policy by the Morrison government. And because of the Morrison government, our economy is now strong coming out of COVID. Australia has one of the highest vaccination rates in the world. We're ahead of any major advanced economy and have more people in employment than prior to the pandemic. We've seen an increase of 3.1% in employment levels to pre-COVID levels. Our unemployment rate is down to 4% nationally and 3.2% in the ACT. This is the equal lowest level in nearly 50 years. And Australia is also one of the only few nations to maintain a AAA credit rating. This is all down to the Morrison Liberal government and the policies put in place. Australia is leading the world with its recovery out of COVID. And we've done that by working together. Now's not a time to stop.
That was the old one, old comment.
I'd
Aaron
actually
just
like to
messaged me.
recognise a record investment in the ACT, in no small part due to Zed Seselja. We've had, over the last term, $2.2 billion spent here in the ACT. This is, by far, the largest investment in the territory since self-government. That is the largest investment. We've seen $150 million for upgrades to Barton Highway here in Fenner. We've seen $25 million go to duplicating Gungahlin Drive. There's $26.5 million invested for the William Hobble Drive extension and upgrades. Just yesterday, on Monday, we announced a $30 million upgrade, if re-elected, to the town centre and black spot areas as well as safety issues. So we're investing in this town centre. $4.5 million was announced today for Capital Football to help build their centre of football excellence and the home of football. We've announced $500,000 towards building the BAPS Temple in Taylor. We opened up the DHA housing, so brought a federal department here to Gungahlin, which is employing 300 to 400 new jobs here in the Gungahlin Town Centre, which will support all the other businesses around it. And the federal government has committed, if re-elected, to release land at the old Ginninderra Syro sites, which will mean 2,000 blocks of land released for new housing dwellings, not units. And there's $500 million has been added in the latest budgets for health, which is more than double the $202 million the last Labor government committed. We've invested
Nathan,
400.
Can you wind up, please?
Yep. Just let me get to the end of this. $400 million in investment in education, showing again and almost doubling in spending since Labor. This is record commitments to the territory and the electorate of Canberra. And if given the chance, I would love to represent you as your local member.
Sorry about the brutal timekeeping. It's important we keep on track. And Natasha, representing the Greens, will now speak.
Thank you very much for that, Peter. I'd like to echo the acknowledgement of country made earlier, and I'd also like to acknowledge all First Nations people in this room and those that may be live streaming at home, and specifically to acknowledge Waka Waka Woolly woman, Dr. Janara Garang, who is here, and I'm really excited to hear her speak, and I'm really excited for all of you to hear her speak because she's an incredible woman, and yeah, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for passing over the microphone to me. My name is Natasha Shoich, or in the English Australian, it's Natasha Sojic is fine. Well, I also go by Tash. So a little about me as well. I was born in regional Victoria to refugee parents who came here as refugees from war-torn Yugoslavia. It was really hard for them. They came to this country to give me and my brother a better life, and I am so thankful for them and all that they have risked and sacrificed to do that for me and my brother. And it is their love for me and my brother that I kind of project onto the community, and I want a better Australia and a better future for everyone else and for everyone in Australia, because this is truly a remarkable country and we're so lucky to be born here. I'm the only person in my family to be born in a first world country, and that is Australia. I was born in Wiradjuri country in Albury. So I am so proud to be Australian, and I'm so proud of my heritage as well. Yes. So it is so amazing to me that the Greens have given me this opportunity to run as a candidate in the upcoming federal election, and it's so surreal to my family. They came here as refugees, and now their daughter is running in a democratic system for parliament. That is absolutely insane and means the world to my community. So thank you, and thank you, Gungahlin. I live in Moncrief, which is just about 10 minutes from here. You may know me. I was trying to get every man and their dog to sign my petition to remove the Moncrief sludge pit, and we were successful in that. And thank you, Andrew Braddock, who is here today supporting me in getting that across the line. And that is just kind of one way that I have been actively involved in the Gungahlin community. And I was approached and they asked me for help. They said, "Oh, you're a Green, can you please help us with this? We've tried before, we've tried with Labor, kind of didn't go anywhere. Can we please have you put this forward?" And tried really hard, and we got there. So thank you for that as well. I'm involved in my local neighbourhood watch, and I'm involved in the Moncrief Land Care group. So I'm just a really happy, involved community member. I kind of take politics as a case-by-case basis. I can stand here all day and tell you all about our policies, which I'm sure Janara will later, but I really, if I'm elected as the representative for Fenner, I will treat every single constituent as their own, with their own certain scenario. I will not kind of have a one-size-fits-all. I will try to help every single person that comes through the door or emails me or gives me a call. As I have been doing, I've been answering every single email that comes through, and there have been a lot. There have been a lot of campaigns. So yeah, thank you very much. I hope I will tell you a little bit more about myself and my passions and my work history. Thank you.
Okay.
Just doing a bit of a sound check on mine. I committed a small sin. The next speaker on the Senate ticket should have been Tim Elton rather than Tasia, and I apologise for mispronouncing her name. No excuse. My daughter-in-law is from Yugoslavia as well, family. So the next speaker on behalf of the United Australia Party is Tim Elton.
Well, I don't mind. So, I've had a varied background, not as varied as some.
Pitched in at the other
So,
time.
some of you may have done research, did 12 years in the Air Force. This is my last post, and said, Canberra's as good as any. So when I first came here, I lived in Kingston, then I lived out in McGregor, back to Kingston, and then I ended up in Canberra, been there 7 years, 8 years now. And I actually enjoy Gungahlin. The only place I haven't lived is Tuggeranong. And to me, Gungahlin's one of the places I like the most. But what drove me to throw my hat in the ring was I looked around the country, and while ACT itself was in a nice little bubble, and I know a lot of public servants, and they got to work from home. Oh, nice. Didn't miss a paycheck. And you look around the country, and a lot of people did miss paychecks. They were forced onto things like JobKeeper. And that hurt a lot of people. And some people were better off. They were earning more, which shouldn't really be the case, but they were earning more. But a lot of businesses have said that they now struggle to get people to come back to work and find staff. Why? Because the Morrison government shut down international borders. And then the state governments shut down their borders. So I looked around and went, why? Because at the time, I was at Costco. Costco went, no jab, no job. And I went, why am I being forced to take a medical procedure that I've researched the hell out of and said, I'm fit and I'm healthy. I don't need it. There are people that, yes, should do things, but it's up to the individual. That's why I threw my hat in the ring to run for this. And I plan on working for the community that I've grown to enjoy and love. And if I ever actually get a chance to buy a house, I'd like to buy a house in Gungahlin. That's why I just enjoy it. It's a nice place to live. It's friendly, it's warm, and we have great places to go for a walk. So I plan on fighting for things like we should have had an overpass on the Barton Highway.
Is that a way we can increase? Is there a way we can increase the sound way of this?
There should have been an overpass. It's a highway. It was always going to be.
Because I increased it over year as well.
So things like
using
that
this option
should have always been the way it is. The way it should have been, not the way it is now. But I hope to fight for you and your rights to employ who you want, work where you want, and make your own choices. Because it's supposed to be a free, a fair country. And it's supposed to be welcoming for people like Tasha. Because that's the whole point about somewhere like Australia. We don't live in China, and we don't live in some of these other places that are running a tyrannical government. We should be able to live free, and we should be able to make our own choices.
All right, just the fifth and final candidate for the panel is Guy Jackman. He's with the Liberal Democratic Party. Guy.
Apologies, I'm not as good a speaker as Andrew. He's very polished, isn't he? Yes. Okay, good evening. My name is Guy Jackman, and I'm running for the Liberal Democrats. So I've been in Gungahlin region, Gungahlin, for 25 years, so long-term resident. So the Liberal Democrats themselves have been reformed in the ACT 21 years ago. So we are a long-established party in the ACTs. You might have seen people, including myself, occasionally on the ballot paper over the last couple of decades. So our name was picked for the simple reason that our party is uncompromisingly about liberal democracy. So that is the reason for the thing. And when I say this, I mean in the classical liberal or libertarian tradition. So I mention this because a lot of people confuse us with the Liberals and think at times we're a shield party for the Liberals to flag preferences. So if that was the case, I'd just say they wouldn't have taken us to court at least 2 or 3 times. So we're not a shield party for the Liberals, we are different. We also fly quite often in our material the Southern Cross flag, and that doesn't mean we're a shield party for Labor either. So we're not left, we're not right, we're not centrist. We're libertarian. So what I'll try and do is try and explain that, because a lot of people don't learn this in school or anywhere. So as a libertarian party, the key part of our constitution is where everyone, all the candidates have to be adhere to the principles. So we're a very principle-based party. So, and arguably probably the only party where you can predict what we'll vote on or how we'll vote. Because as a candidate, we'll take pledges to basically say we'll never vote for an increase in taxes or a reduction in civil liberties. Other things is basically evidence-based policy, cost-benefit analysis. Now, for administration of government infrastructure, like roads, it's like what is the merit order of things and good practice. But in terms of policies, it's don't increase taxes, no reduction in civil liberties. So we support peaceful people basically doing anything that's peaceful. That's basically it. So you can be anti-mandate and pro-choice because it doesn't hurt anything. So and our MPs in Victoria upheld these principles to the point that they were barred from the Victorian Parliament. So actually, and to the point they can't vote in the way they can't. So they can't do teams and vote in Parliament. They were barred from Parliament and couldn't vote. So to have other MPs undemocratically take your MPs out from voting is really not liberal democracy. So basically that just sort of shows our ethos is civil liberties. So we are a party of civil liberties and we uphold that. In terms of economic freedoms, we support free markets and the freedom of choice for anything between consenting adults. Take that as you will, like just anything that's peaceful between consenting people. So Michael Patterson with his legalised cannabis, well, you're more decriminalised cannabis. But yeah, legalised cannabis, anything between adults. And ACT has been a good supporter of this over the years. So one of the key things we want, and we've tried in the past when David Lyon was Senator, is repeal the Andrews Bill. So get territory rights back to the territory. So we can have our own experiments about social policies, which includes things like assisted dying and things like that. So, okay, so we promote limited government. We basically, the role of government is focused on national defence, protection of people's rights, and a safety net for welfare when needed. So, in terms of our headline policies for the election, you go to our website, ldp.org.au, and read our Freedom Manifesto. We also have videos if you want to read, so videos are nice, short bites. Briefly, we'll slash personal income taxes. So by far the most cutting of taxes of any party. So we'll raise the tax-free threshold to 40,000, and then a flat tax of 20%. So if you can imagine that, every tax bracket benefits massively out of that. So 40,000 tax-free threshold, 20% tax rate thereafter. And we'll index that to inflation, so there's no bracket creep ever again. So bracket creep is insidious and bad. So similarly, company tax, change the company tax to 20% and remove all company tax on reinvested profits. So by itself, that will massively reinvestment, promote productivity, promote investment in Australia and increase jobs, increase wages. The tax cuts will address cost of living issues. So these are fully costed. We have alternative budgets. We've always done alternative budgets. And mostly it's just getting rid of government subsidies, welfare churn, like middle class churn, where, you know, they take the money out of your pocket, take a cut for the bureaucracy, give it back as, you know, childcare subsidies or otherwise. And that's basically, that's it. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thanks very much, Guy. So that completes our opening addresses from our candidates for the seat of Fenner. Thank you all. We now move on to the long list of candidates for the Senate seats. Again, we'll be trying to do this in the order in which the ticket is printed. And again, we're going to each of the parties represented rather than the individual candidates, otherwise we will be here all evening. So that means that Andrew spoke on behalf of the ALP earlier, and Katie Gallagher is the first Senate candidate on the ticket. So we're moving on to the second, which is John Hayden, who's speaking on behalf of the Sustainable Australia Party. And we just have 3 minutes for our Senate candidates.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. First, I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples
What's his name?
as the first Australians and traditional custodians of the land where they live and learn and hopefully work. Also, pay sincere thanks to the community, the Gungahlin Community Council. I'm especially grateful for this opportunity. And I'd just like to acknowledge too that our lead candidate is Joy Angel. She would love to be here tonight, but she's in Brisbane. Oh, you're here. Hi, Joy. There's Joy over here. Plane was late, but she made it. So, Sustainable Australia Party is an independent community movement from the political centre. We support a science and evidence-based approach to policy and are primarily campaigning to protect our environment, stop overdevelopment and stop corruption. Canberrans should vote for Sustainable Australia Party if they care about the quality of life in Canberra, which is being degraded by overdevelopment and the systemic corruption of the planning process by vested interests overriding the interests of ordinary Canberrans. Importantly, Sustainable Australia Party is the only political party to challenge the folly of unlimited growth in both resource consumption and population, the twin drivers of Australia's growing environmental problems. Sustainable Australia Party will prioritise growth in health and well-being, including growth in the health of our environment, education standards, job opportunities, housing affordability, and democracy over so-called economic growth as measured by the crude economic statistic of aggregate GDP. So the current aggregate GDP growth, if you like in quotes, agenda, is driven by greed and the related corruption of Australia's political system by vested interests. It is lowering Australia's livability as well as degrading our environment with many ecological crises as a result, including obviously things like species extinctions, loss of biodiversity, and probably the big one for us all, climate change. Sustainable Australia Party recommends Canberrans vote 1 for our minor party in the knowledge that if we're not elected, their vote will flow through fully to their next preference. The vote's not wasted, in other words. It will send a clear message that voters want action to protect Australia's environment and quality of life, as well as stop overdevelopment and corruption. And I think I've still got a little bit of time. Turning to the local issues that we would advise the audience would like to have addressed, what we've got is in Gungahlin Town Centre, an area that was supposed to have 10,000 office jobs, but it hasn't, and that represents partly a failing of the ACT planning system, but it also represents, in a sense, the connivance of the Commonwealth Government in allowing cheap office development at the airport on Commonwealth land. So that sucked employment away from Gungahlin. And the other issue that I just wanted to briefly address was infrastructure in the Gungahlin region. Now it's very interesting that with the Syro Ginninderra site, Syro are claiming that 140 acres of the 700 hectare site will be set aside as public open space. We can look at that another way, we can turn it on its head, and we can say that 560 hectares of open space are lost. So as always, the environment has to compromise.
Thank you very much. Thanks, John. Thank you. The next speaker on the Senate ticket is David Polcock, representing David Polcock.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to the Gungahlin Community Council for this opportunity. I'd also like to start by acknowledging that we are on Ngunnawal land and pay my respects to the elders, past and present. I'm running as independent because, like so many people, I've been frustrated with politics and really believe that there is a role for independents to play in representing their community on issues that are important to us and affect us every day. I'm committed to being accessible and want to be accountable to the community that I love here in Canberra. My whole policy platform is based on thousands of conversations with Canberrans. It's probably no surprise that one of the things that comes up again and again is integrity. We clearly need more integrity in politics. And as an independent senator, I'll be pushing whoever forms next government to clean things up, have a strong integrity commission, start looking at political donation reform, truth in political advertising, and actually resourcing our audit office to ensure that the money that is spent well, which I think flows into some of the real concerns I've been hearing around Gungahlin. Things like poor internet connections, half of the suburb of Casey not even having access to the NBN. If we look at, take a closer look at the NBN rollout, over the last 2 years, 700 suburbs across Australia have been upgraded, only 10 in the ACT. As a politically safe area, we've been totally overlooked. And despite what we're hearing about record spends in this sort of last budget, that follows 9 years of chronic underinvestment and neglect of the ACT. There's clearly a lot to do to turn that around. Community sports is another area that I think needs focus. Coming out of COVID, we know the importance of getting people active and building community, the mental health benefits of that. And we've got a number of sports who are oversubscribed, they've got waiting lists, they're turning people away. Not to mention women's sport and the need to better invest in facilities. We've currently got women's teams changing in shipping containers, in medical tents, and I would love to see more of a focus and more investment in that. And it's great to see over the last few days, a bit more focused and more election promises for women's sport. Housing affordability, obviously something across the ACT. Supply is an important part of it, but we need a much bigger national housing strategy and far more investment in social and affordable housing, not just here in the ACT, but across Australia. It was touched on, the public service is something that we have to ensure stays in Canberra. It was really worrying in the last budget that there was sort of talk of decentralisation. We need to fight any decentralisation, but also work with the federal government to ensure that it is spread out across Canberra in a way that actually works for us as a city. I'm really looking forward to hearing more and answering your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the short addresses are intended to make as much time as possible for questions, so hopefully you'll take a good note of what questions you wish to ask. Our next speaker, representing the Kim for Canberra party.
Peter, your mic is on mute, Peter.
Our next speaker, representing the Kim for Canberra party, is Kim. Is Kim you? Yeah.
Both.
Yes?
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Peter. And as I acknowledge, this is proud Ngunnawal Ngambri country. I want to also acknowledge Dr. Mary Graham. She's a First Nations woman and a teacher of politics. She's a First Nations woman and a teacher of politics and philosophy at the University of Queensland. I very much appreciate her work. And she was often asked, and she's still alive, I hope she's not asked anymore, she's often asked, what's with you First Nations people? Why don't you have these big grand ideas of politics? Ideas like liberalism, socialism and democracy. And this is her answer. We sorted all that crap out ages ago. So with that in mind, I hope we can sort a little bit of crap out today. And I want to say firstly, it is a huge deal for me to be here, a huge deal. I almost wasn't here. Kim and I have been talking about this mad plan to run for the Senate together for well over a year, I think. And then early this year, well, life happened, didn't it? My dad had another stroke, and I became his 24/7 care. He's doing really well, but my mum and I care for him. So I said to Kim, I'll never forget, I said it to Kim and her family, look mate, I can't do this. This is the worst time of my life. I'm struggling no end. You're going to have to go alone or find someone else. And Kim didn't say much. She basically just said, I'll support you, Kimber. I'll support you. We'll see how it goes. We'll leave it up to the last minute. And things are a little better, and I'm really, really proud to be running with Kim. So it's a big deal for me, I think, as a carer, as a single dad, and as a boat person to be running for the Senate with Kim. And this is not just a personal story. I think it's important for all of us because it's an example of Kim's commitment to diversity, to inclusion, and it's not just a matter of principle. It's because it's important to do things differently, to have different voices, to have new ideas. And what we do within our party, she will do for our country. I think it's really important for all of us to have people who would otherwise not really have a chance to stand up for everyone. And it's important too, I think, because I've been teaching politics for 20 years now, and every election and even between elections, you hear a lot of promises. I humbly suggest to the voters out there, don't vote on promises. Vote on character, vote on integrity, and vote for people who have a track record of getting things sorted out. Don't vote for me, vote for Kim. She's running for the Senate and she's my mate.
Thank you. Either life has not enough microphones or too many. Our next speaker is on the list, Therese Faulkner from the Sustainable.
No, sorry, Progressives.
Progressives. Quick reminder, the Australian political scene is much richer than it seems by listening to mainstream media, and tonight's a great example.
Thanks very much, Peter. And thanks, Gungahlin Community Council, and thanks also for the acknowledgement of country. Look, in the interest of keeping it to 3 minutes, I'd like to talk a bit about the Australian Progressives. So we are a relatively new party and a party with a difference. We are about progress. So let's progress to the future, but make sure that that progress is underpinned by a set of really strong principles. And those principles that we're about include ethics, empathy, evidence, equality and engagement. So I won't go into all of that, but we are here for the long haul. We've contested 3 previous elections and we're looking to grow ever stronger over time. I'd like to acknowledge my Senate running mate Stephen Lynn, who's in the audience as well. Thanks for coming along, Stephen. So myself and Stephen are contesting the Senate this time. A bit about me. I'm a long-term Canberran. I grew up in the suburb of Higgins when it was a brand new suburb with not many facilities back in the 1970s, and then we bought our first house down in Isabella Plains in Tuggeranong, raised my kids in Tuggeranong. So I feel I have a lot of empathy with the people of Gungahlin in terms of living in brand new houses on brand new blocks without many facilities and a little bit neglected for a while. But look, I think some of the priorities for the residents of Gungahlin are probably well aligned with those of the Australian Progressives. So I'll talk about just 2 of those. One is we are really about long-term planning. So we're a bit tired of planning for 3-year election cycles. We really want to get into planning for the next, say, 20 years or 50 years or even 100 years. We think that in 100 years we actually are a country that can have a vision where everyone in the country is well off. And to be well off, we need to make those adjustments to policy settings. We need to engage with communities. We need to engage at all levels of government and make these things happen for the greater good. In that way, we can address things like affordable housing. We can address good health and education. We can address urban planning and transport solutions, not to mention climate and environment. Another one very close to our heart, and I know there's a number of people talking about it, it's what we would call the political emergency. So it's this slide into moving to be less transparent, less open, a slippery slope into what might be corruption. So we need to stop that slippery slide. We need to get big money out of politics. We need to stop political donations from corporations, because how can you make decisions in the interest of everyone when you are having that sort of level of funding? So let's have a code of conduct and code of ethics for parliamentarians, and a federal independent commission against corruption as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Therese. Those who are following along with their Senate tickets will notice we didn't have James speak on behalf of the United Australia Party, because Tim did in the earlier section when we were doing the Fenner candidates. We now have a representative for the Senate speaking for the Senate seat from the Greens. It's Tiara Goring-Green.
Thank you.
Greens already had a go. Sorry.
So I don't get to speak because you've already spoken?
I don't.
No worries.
Okay. So that's my apologies.
Janara, actually.
Janara. And then, so 2 mistakes in a row. One, I didn't check my notes, and secondly, I should have made sure of my pronunciation, so my apologies for that. All right, so back to the list of those parties who haven't spoken yet. The Legalised Cannabis Australia Party is going to be represented by Andrew Catalaris.
Well, thank you very much. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners, and I'd also traditional occupiers, and I'd also like to abhor the fact that we incarcerate them at 10 times the rate of the general population, and maybe the major parties could stop the hypocrisy and start to get real about what they do. Now, my name's Dr. Andrew Catalaris. I've been a medical doctor for 30 years. I've been researching the industrial, medical and nutritional uses of cannabis since 1988. Now, we're a small party, but we have a big idea. And I haven't heard any big ideas so far. I've heard wish lists, but a big idea has to have a way to get there. Australia's currently spending $2 billion a year prohibiting cannabis. If we remove cannabis from the schedule of prohibition, that will free $2 billion to establish critical infrastructure such as non-wood paper mills, non-wood plastic mills, non-synthetic textiles. In fact, the majority of the economic and environmental problems we have occurred because of the intentional banning of cannabis by US corporations, especially DuPont, in 1937. Are you aware of that? We made a documentary in 1995 called The $1 Billion Crop, which outlines the political basis of the prohibition. In a nutshell, the oil barons banned cannabis to allow nylon and their other synthetics onto the market and eventually to dominate that market. Until we transit back from their hydrocarbon nightmare to a carbohydrate world where we can make everything in a clean and genuinely sustainable way, we won't make progress. Now, I've only been given 3 minutes to speak, and the Gungahlin people, who I thank for organising the event, have asked to comment now on a number of specific things. Now, this is a federal election, and we've got to think federally and big. With regards to fibre optic, all my research, I have a subspecialty in immunopathology, all my research has indicated that high intensity electromagnetic radiation has a serious cumulative detrimental effect, and I abhor the rollout of 5G. Very, very much support a fibre optic network as a critical piece of infrastructure for this country that will last for 100 years. That's the way I see that. Everyone talks about affordable housing, but how are we going to get affordable housing? We've developed a cellulose cement material called hempcrete, which has better thermal and acoustic insulation than masonry and is completely fireproof and termite proof, about half the cost of masonry. In addition, the average brick house in this country will outgas 500 tonnes of carbon dioxide for its production, A hemp house will have a net bank of 50 tonnes because of the sequestration. These crooks in the coal industry are talking about carbon sequestration. We already have it. A field of hemp can sequestrate 20 or 30 tonnes of carbon dioxide each year. And if that's made into long, durable houses, you've got a solution to a lot of problems. So I urge you to watch Billion Dollar Crop on YouTube, Billion Dollar Crop, and then vote cannabis first, because it's a genuine solution to a multiplicity of problems.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Our next speaker, speaking on behalf of the Animal Justice Party, is Jana de Waal.
I just wanted to echo the acknowledgements tonight, but I also want to just pay my respects also to the earth, the land and the animals, and I hope that they bring healing to you. My name's Jana de Waal, and I'm running as the lead candidate for the Senate seat of Canberra for the Animal Justice Party. As a child, I had a natural affiliation with animals, and whilst I didn't know what meat really was, at the time, I really didn't like the texture of it. At 15, I became a vegetarian, but it wasn't until 2011, when I saw the horrific and inhumane treatment of sheep and cattle exports, that I thought, someone should do something about that. And then I realised that maybe that someone could be me. So I became a wildlife carer in the 80s and returned from a 2-year trip to the United Kingdom, which helped me see how the treatment of animals across the world lack compassion and understanding. My husband and I moved to Canberra from Sydney in the 90s, mainly for job security, but serendipitously, we couldn't believe our luck when we discovered the bush capital was surrounded by wildlife, large open spaces and great air quality. I joined the Animal Justice Party as its core values of kindness, equality, rationality and non-violence express my morals and someone I'd like to be. The Animal Justice Party recognises the importance of each individual animal to be able to live a life free from human-caused pain and suffering. Our policies are designed to protect animals, but we know that this can only be achieved alongside the protection of the environment and the progression of social justice. Everyone should be able to enjoy the basic requirements of a good life, decent healthcare, affordable housing, equal access to educational and employment opportunities. In Australia, animal agriculture is responsible for 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions, as well as the leading cause of deforestation, habitat loss, species extinction, topsoil erosion and ocean dead zones. We can mitigate the effects of climate change, coexist with wildlife, protect our natural resources for survival for all species by transitioning to responsible plant-based farming. I'm running to actively contest elections, thereby providing you, the voters, an opportunity to demonstrate that you too care for animals and climate issues. I believe that it must be a priority for everyone in this room to have a national climate emergency declared and net zero emissions by 2035. I believe that you don't want to hear or see animal abuse and cruelty, images that you can never unsee. I know we cannot change overnight. However, acknowledging animals as sentient beings by encouraging smart infrastructure designs through nature corridors, bridges, underpasses, ending live exports and transitioning away from animal agriculture, we can make a large difference, a better world for the animals, people and the planet. By placing a 1 but next to the Animal Justice Party, you'll be giving animals and country a voice. And you can make you can still make your voice count towards any of the popular Senate candidates behind me. Good luck, everybody. Thank you, Gungahlin.
Thank you very much. Our second last speaker this evening is Michael Sims. Michael represents the Informed Medical Options Party.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to acknowledge the elders of the land, past, present and emerging. Very hard to speak after all you guys. I'm in the crowd cheering you guys on. So, One thing though, I am from the Informed Medical Options Party. We stand for truth, transparency and accountability in media, science and the government. In saying that, I'm not a politician. I don't look like it. They're very well spoken, very well dressed. I was a disability worker for 18 years. That's my craft. So I can have an argument about the NDIS and the shambles that is with anyone for weeks on end. The biggest problem is the government throws money at things. Like someone said earlier, they promise the world, they don't deliver. Whether that's Liberal or Labor, they don't deliver. All my lifetime, they've been in power and they've not delivered. No matter who's in power, we complain, we've got issues, and they promise things they don't deliver on. Like they said, the things they'll try to deliver on, they throw money at. Sorry, I don't know your name, but earlier you stated in Zed's case, record amounts of money he's thrown out. I, like all these other guys here, have received hundreds, if not thousands of emails, spoken to the community, and all these things they threw money at is not one thing that people ask for. Is that an issue? Now everyone goes, yes. No offence if anyone's a used car salesman out there, but we know not to trust a used car salesman. To me, that's the Liberal and the Labor Party. I don't trust them. You shouldn't trust them. Again, I cheered on these guys. They sound good. They don't trust them either. We need to make a change. We know we need to make a change. We've dealt with this too long. Making a change between Liberal and Labor isn't a change. So that's my 2 cents. The media, we wish the media would tell the truth. I know a lot of people here are talking about climate. Why isn't both sides talking about climate? They're both looking at different studies. Who are the studies funded by? Both will say they trust the science. Here's the problem. Who's funding the studies? Who are the studies by? Who's paying? Who are the donors that are supplying all these parties the money? It's all linked, and that's why we say truth, transparency and accountability. I can't promise you nothing. I can't promise you nothing, except I would fight for the people, but chances are only one person in this room will vote for me, and that's my second over there, Mary Jane. But again, I support these independents and minor parties, so do the right thing.
Thanks very much, Michael. Our last speaker seeking election to the Senate, the ACT, is Fusin Lee. He's an independent.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for your invitation. And this is the more valuable opportunity for the independents during the election. And also, I would start to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this Nanama country. I respect their past, present, and emerge in the future. My name is Fusin Lee. I'm standing for speaking for all and standing for harmony. And also, my main policy is about the advocating the multiculturalism, education development, the cultural language and enterprises. Talking there locally in Gungahlin, I lived in this area for 21 years. I'm the operator of the community language school and also the owner of the small business. So my family have been living in this area for 21 years, and I would say I can be local. In terms of the priority of my policies locally here, I would first to address the transportation and the upgrade of the transportation. Upgrade the traffic. The was and is the priority of my policy because I ran my independent election for Yarraby 2 years ago, and also at that time, for example, and my volunteers and also the professional developers, we did a survey at the the highest accident roads, the roundabout, the Barton, and also Gungahlin, the road, yes. And also, I support the idea to duplicate the Barton Highway, and also furthermore, I would propose that we should have an extension, like the Gungahlin extension, just from the hall, link to the Park Horse Drive directly to ease the transportation and traffickers to reduce the rate of the accident. Secondly, because I have a background for almost 30 years for education cultural language in Australia and in ACT, and particularly in the Gungahlin area. For the education, I would hope that the government would invest more for the educational infrastructures, because this is the young region and population booming area. I would like to say if we can establish international school, on the dumped school in Hull, because in 1906 it was a school already, and this is the home of the Ngunnawal country. Thirdly, because understanding of the multicultural and the community languages, and we have now about 9 community languages, 1,000 students studying languages in Gungahlin area, but we still have 3 schools have a new accommodation to run the face-to-face classes. And lastly, I would also to draw attention for the community safety, because 2 years ago when I ran my campaign, we did have my volunteers to be harassed locally, and also the local helpers also harassed. I would hope the Gungahlin will become better and safe places to live, to study, and to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. And we have some very keen younger members of the community enjoying the forum tonight. So that completes the opening addresses from everyone here this evening. I would encourage you to think about when you direct your questions to a candidate. We have more candidates than who spoke, which again is a really positive and encouraging sign. So I have a microphone I'm keen to hand out to the first speaker looking for a question, because the alternative is I'll have to start asking questions, and that's fairly tragic. If I could just get someone to whisk that away. Thanks, Coffee.
Hello, my name's Greg. I've been a resident of Gungahlin for 25 years. We bought a house 20 years ago in Gungahlin, and back then we only had Woolworths. And years ago, Gungahlin was rated one of the biggest growing suburbs in Australia, and that's a great feat. My question is to Kim, from the Kim Party. You spoke about climate change, and you really haven't been out in the public eye for very long. Can you tell me how you're going to do that, and what is the cost of the economy?
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for the question. And I've been here in Canberra since 2006 and have been doing quite a lot of public advocacy around integrity in government and in questions to do with citizenship and standing up for people against... Oh, yes, certainly. Government overreach. But your specific question to me is about climate change, and I'm delighted to share with you the Climate Compact initiative that I have proposed, which is actually based on the structures that were set up back in the 1980s when we were having difficulties over moving forward with all stakeholders around the economy. And it was taken out of Parliament and negotiated at a National Economic Summit, and then brought back as an economic accord. Now, what we've had over the last 20 years has been a stalemate due to the intensely partisan party political system that we have been witnessing, not only on climate but other issues. But climate is the perfect example of the party structure being a hurdle to moving forward in our Parliament. So this initiative is taking it out of Parliament with Parliament support, so in the 47th Parliament, to support a negotiated approach to three key areas. The reduction in our domestic economy of carbon emissions, with a minimum starting point of a 50% reduction by 2030, but with the possibility of stretching further, because you have all of the stakeholders securing knowing that everyone's interests are being taken into account. In addition, we would be able to stretch the current Labor Party's approach to looking directly at our export industries, which are of course very sensitive, and how we do that in a way that protects all workers within the community. And thirdly, for the economy more broadly, which is your specific question, how we can invest in renewables in a way that is going to secure the economic framework for all. Now, that negotiated settlement is one in which no one will be left behind, that the benefits are available for everyone. And within that negotiation settlement, it will go back into Parliament to be legislated and budgeted for at the next budget.
Whilst Australia only admit 0.4% emissions, whilst China is admitting till 2030. Our number one export is coal and iron ore. That runs our economy. So what's your thoughts on what China is thinking right now, what we're doing? Are we a little bit behind the ball? How do you explain that? Our economy is our future. So we've got to harness and protect that. What's your thoughts on that?
So I think your questions are really important questions that we need all of the stakeholders to be negotiating about. So my personal view is actually not as relevant to moving forward as what all of the stakeholders who have a real interest in the outcomes that are for the benefit not only for our nation but of course internationally. And that is something that we do have the expertise and the commitment from various stakeholders in the business industry, in the unions, within the states and territories who have been working already in these areas. So it is about drawing all the forces together to actually move forward in a way that deals with the needs of our community and our role in an international framework.
And obviously we're trying to keep the answers reasonably succinct so that we can get through as much material as possible. Any other questions?
This isn't a question. I'm actually a Senate candidate. I just want to talk a little bit about
the
James,
economy.
Is that okay?
Happy for you to speak, but if you could ask to speak.
Yes, sorry, I was putting my hand up to him, not for the mic to ask a question. Sorry about that. But you're right, our economy runs on coal and iron ore exports. And China is currently investing heavily in Africa, and they're going to be turning away from us. But that's not going to be ready for quite some time. And one of the policies that we have at United Australia Party, because right now they don't have an alternative option, is to put a 15% export licence on iron ore, and we'll be able to pay off, with that export licence, we'll be able to pay off our $1 trillion of debt that Labor and Liberal have racked up in 15 to 20 years' time. And if we don't take advantage of the time right now, we don't put that export licence on right now, we're going to miss the opportunity. So anyway, I just wanted to chuck that in there. Okay. Sorry.
Thanks, James. Grab that microphone back. Look, I will toss in one of the questions the GCC put out, and I'll direct it to Senator Gallagher, who has made a number of announcements around re-energising, I'm not sure if I've got the right word, the Australian Public Service. And I'm particularly interested in what we had in our notes here around the... cancelling myself. Particularly interested in the proposition that the ACT government have put together around the notion of working with the Commonwealth on a smart work hub to bring employment back to Gungahlin. Obviously, you've had some very direct experience with the COVID crisis, and that's changed a lot of views on workplaces. I'd be very curious to know how you would approach that and whether the ALP position is indeed to work with the ACT government to develop a smart work hub here in Gungahlin.
Thanks very much, Peter, and sorry about my nose band-aid. I feel like I have to explain it before I speak to anybody, but get a skin check if you need one. Short story. On the APS, I think at a general level, what we want to do, if we were fortunate enough to win, is to work with the ACT government on a whole range of areas, not just around the APS, but there's obviously challenges around infrastructure, there's challenges in health, there's challenges in skills, there's challenges in the climate policy. So the approach that Anthony has been outlining in the campaign is that he wants to be at the table working with states and territories on all of these issues, aged care, the NDIS, all of those. On the APS, APS, which is under my portfolio area of responsibility, I think COVID has taught us that really the traditional ways of working can be thrown up in the air, and people can and have found new ways to work, new ways to be productive, and the APS has really done pretty well in that regard. We've made some announcements around reinvesting in the APS. It's been eroded under the Morrison government. There's whole departments now that don't even have policy capacity, so we want to make some reinvestments back into the APS so that it can actually be the enduring apolitical institution that it was always originally meant to be, but is not functioning as now. And I think those work hubs are part of the solution into creating a modern, functioning customer-focused APS. We need to make sure that the change that has gone in ACT Gov, in terms of Canberra Connect and all of those good, the apps that are in place, the Commonwealth is lagging in that area. So I think working and how you work and where you work is a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity, including in savings, that can be reinvested back in the APS. Great for town centres like Gungahlin, but also I think it's also about how you ensure that the APS is actually a functioning customer-focused service, and I'm not sure it's able to do that at the moment because of the way labour hire and contractors and consultants are used.
Thank you, Kate. I think we have a question from online. Yep, I'll just get my online speaker. Nope, gone. Okay, while that's happening, yes, just there in the middle, Coffee.
Thank you, GCC. My name is Pippa and I'm a Gungahlin resident and child of immigrants, and thank you for acknowledging that Gungahlin is a very multicultural place to live, and that's why I live here, and 9 languages. That was interesting, but not surprising, so thank you. I'm also a public servant and work in the arts, and a woman. So under the Liberal government in the last 9 years, hasn't gone so well. This is a question for Nathan. Thank you for being here tonight. It's a shame Zed wasn't here, but thank you. I wanted to ask, how will you get my vote for this election as a woman and as a employer in the arts that looks after Australia's cultural heritage, one of many people that do that, and is struggling under the current government?
Thank you for the question. Look, the Liberal Party's platform at this election is focused on a number of federal issues. We're primarily a Liberal Party, which means that we don't believe that one gender should be prioritised over another. We believe in equality of the genders, and I certainly do believe that, and I have certainly campaigned for that. In relation to the arts, I don't actually have the policies in front of me, and unfortunately I can't answer that much further. I can only answer in relation to basically what we were briefed on today. So I'm sorry I can't answer further than that, but I'd be more than happy to take your details and talk to you outside of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Nathan. Did have a question just here in the front. Okay, well, let's go with that one, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I'm Michael Thorne. I've been in Gungahlin for 12 years. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all the candidates who are running for this, because I think it's good you're having a go, and particularly the new ones. My question, I hear a lot about climate change. It seems that 3 years ago when we had the campaigning for the election, every candidate was saying that they were in for climate change. Not too many of them knew in Gungahlin more what climate change was all about. And then I hear also everybody wants cheaper housing, and the policy, I think it's to Nathan, but the solution to getting cheaper housing is open up more land for development. And so I've got a bit of a question here. How are we going to have climate change, yet we're going to start building and turning into a concrete city by getting rid of our natural land? So we've got sort of two competing forces there. And the second part of the question is, if you unlock those the land for housing development, have you done any studies as to how much it would reduce the house prices? I don't think it really would. I don't know all the places. I know the CSIRO is one place, but how do you know by unlocking all these places and doing development, how will it bring down the prices? Have you got any metrics on that?
Nathan?
Once again, thanks for the question. And you're right about this issue with land supply. That is an issue that has stemmed from a policy with the Labor and Greens ACT government. They've got a 70-30, 70% under the existing umbrella, 30% new developments. We're struggling to see where there's going to be new houses. In relation to this land, the answer to that is obviously release government land. So we're committing to 2,000 blocks. We're committing that those will be made available as affordable housing. So they will be for that purpose. So they will be used so that they are there will be elements to that I believe will be open up for first home buyers to purchase that land. And by doing so, we can actually control the process of the sale. Now, obviously, this is a situation where that policy will be one where we'll put it out to tender. And we'll obviously want to have developers that will come along with us when we release that land as a return Morrison government, and that they'll work towards addressing that housing affordability. In addition to that, though, we've actually released our home guarantee policy, which we saw in the ACT. It was previously a 5% deposit with a maximum of $500,000 purchase price. Now, once again, I'm going to plug Zed here. Zed walked into the Representative Minister's office with an iPad and said, "You find a house for under $500,000 in the ACT." Couldn't do it, so he increased that price to $750,000. We also guaranteed that with existing homes, so it will apply to all existing residents on the market, but also new homes. So that's our policies to actually addressing this issue. So that is a 2% deposit if you're a single parent is all you need. The government will guarantee the remainder of it. And then obviously you have to go through the normal mortgage requirements, but then 5% for new home buyers as well.
Thanks, Nathan. Any further? Oh, yes. Sorry, sir. Yes.
Hi. So we have 2 Senate seats here in the ACT. Based on past opinion, Katie Gallagher's fine. She's going to win. Based on past math. My question's not really for you. Sorry. Of the other seat, Zed's not here, so I can't ask him this question. But there are 3 candidates here within, say, polling distance of Zed's seat: David, Janara, and Kim. And my question to you is kind of, what makes you different? Are you ready? And what kind of integrity are you going to bring to the office if you do happen to win?
Okay, it's always tough to get a multi-question, but hey, that's the first one for the night, so let's give it a spin. So in that order, perhaps Jara, David, and Kim, a couple of minutes each on that.
So what are the 3 questions again, James?
What makes you different?
Right.
Are you ready? And what kind of integrity are you going to bring to the office?
What makes me different? That's a bit obvious. Well, I just had to say that, didn't I? Okay, so thank you for the question, James. I want to honour the Ngunnawal people on whose land we stand this evening. So what makes me different is that I'm a First Nations woman who's running for the Greens. And what's different about the Greens policy is that we're a grassroots movement that has been in action now in Australia for about 30 years. What's different about me personally is that I've worked for a very long time, in the last 10, 15 years, in what's called transformational leadership. And I'm particularly interested in emotional intelligence and higher levels of thinking and the way in which systems work well together. So what that really means is it comes down to value systems, down to integrity, to humility, to working with people collaboratively, to being unified in our purpose and vision for Australia. So I'm not really into adversarial politics. I think adversarial politics is long gone and should be long gone. We are not in year 9 and we should not be acting like that in Parliament. So I think that it's important that we start to develop a system in Australian politics where we try to work together for the best of the country, because I think the electorate's just a little bit sick of it. So that's what's different about me. Your next question?
Are you ready?
Oh, totally. And the next question?
What kind of integrity? What kind of integrity will you bring?
I say I'm totally ready because I'm 63 years of age. I'm a grandmother, that's my grandchild over there. And I've spent the last 45 years of my career doing hundreds and hundreds of different things in order to learn a lot about the world, not to just get academic degrees and be an academic and a public servant, but to learn a lot of things about what it means to live in two worlds and to live in the ordinary world like an ordinary person. So I'm the same as everybody else in this room. I've had to rent, I've had to have a mortgage, I've been homeless, I've been a single parent, I've been a married parent. I have had the same life as many of you here in Canberra since 1978. So I think I can say that I'm totally ready because I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't think I was. And what was the last question? That was it, basically. See you, everyone. Thank you.
So, David, I think you're invited up. 2 minutes. Different. Ready.
Got your timer ready? I guess I really want to represent a community that I love. The policy platform that we've put together is based on what Canberrans have been saying they want, and my commitment is to find a pragmatic way forward. So many of us are sick of the politicisation of issues where we just have to find a way forward, and people expect politicians to actually be dealing with the big problems that we face and turn them into opportunities. In terms of me and sort of being ready or a track record, I guess I've got a track record of performing under pressure in professional sport, but I've also been active, talking about climate and actually trying to push the conversation around climate and why we should be doing more as a country, showing more leadership and playing our role in the international community. And then I guess other things, challenging homophobia in sport, trying to work in my own workplace, and then being involved in agriculture and conservation, community development projects where you really do have to be pragmatic. You can have all the ideals you want, but you've got to actually make things work, and that involves compromise. The third one was integrity. I hope I've demonstrated that. The thing that I say to voters is, if there's an incumbent, vote on their track record, look at the way that they've voted on your behalf, look at how they turn up to community forums or how they don't turn up. I think this is my 9th or 10th forum. Senator Selger has graced us with his presence once when it was the Right Act candidates forum. So I think that's a big part of integrity, is actually showing up. And yeah, I haven't hid from the things that Senator Selger thinks are a weakness or likes to point out. So, cheers.
So my answer is actually the combination of those three things. What differentiates me is that I'm ready to roll, and it's all around questions to do with integrity and my own approach to engaging with integrity for the last 25 years. And that is, as a university teacher here in Canberra at the ANU and the University of Canberra, I've been teaching students about integrity in government, about freedom of information, about the importance of it, the independence of tribunals, about the fundamental role of an ombudsman, for instance. I've been advocating for citizens and for people who have been denied citizenship, challenging government decisions and supporting those individuals successfully to show how government has overreached. I've been doing so much outside of Parliament that now needs to be inside Parliament. And we have this amazing opportunity here in Canberra. We know for certain that no matter who wins in the lower house, they will not have a majority in the Senate. that means that the role of the crossbench is key for the passage of every piece of legislation. I am going to be bringing in those 25 years of experience to teach those politicians and also to stand up directly for Canberrans. I will be a voice for Canberrans on issues of integrity. I've advised both sides of government. I've heavily critiqued both sides of government. I'm going to do that right from the chamber, and on day one I have my legislation ready to double the number of senators for the ACT so that every single issue that you as a community in Gungahlin need to be addressed, we will have 4 senators by the next election, with never, ever a major party taking for granted the ACT and your needs here as a Gungahlin resident, as an ACT resident. I commit to you and will be doing that from day one.
Thanks very much. I hope if we double the number of Senate seats, we don't have double the number of candidates. Timing myself out again. We do have a question from Facebook, so I'll just ask our Vice President Henley to pass that on.
Yeah. So there's a question in the Facebook as well as I want to consolidate other questions together, because when we invited to you all for this forum, we told you guys to, in your opening statements, we want you to mention about employment in Gungahlin, infrastructure in Gungahlin region, but I haven't heard much from you guys at all about what you're going to do. I heard some of about animals, plans, all those things, but very interested in employment in Gungahlin, infrastructure in Gungahlin region. If you would have gone all the list, I would like to invite everyone from each party, at least one person from each party, to what's your plan for employment, bringing employment in Gungahlin, and about the infrastructure in Gungahlin, because it's in chaos at the moment with the traffic and all those things. So I'll give it 1 minute for every member in each party to tell your plan for Gungahlin.
Okay, all right, so there's eagerness in both the left and the right of me. Let's start over here with James, United Australia Party.
Do you want me over here?
Yes, please.
Yep. First of all, with the last question, we're actually polling ahead of Kim Rubenstein. I would have liked to answer that, but that's okay. With employment in Gungahlin, we actually have a policy to half the taxation rate on a second job. That's going to help a lot of small businesses find employment for their whatever business they're in. I come from a supermarket background, and I know that we definitely could use a policy like that. In terms of infrastructure, one of the issues that we have in politics across Australia is we don't think long term, we only think short term, and that's because we have a lot of politicians thinking about themselves and getting re-elected the next time round. If you look at the GDE as an example, when that first came in, it was 1 lane. They finished it, and then after a short period of time, they decided to add a second lane in. If they had thought big picture from the beginning, they could have duplicated it right from the start. It would have cost a lot less money. And then also, when you look at the roundabout with lights on Barton Highway, Gundaroo Drive, that should have been an overpass right from the beginning. Again, politicians not thinking big picture. I'll leave it at that. United Australia Party, James Savalides.
Thanks, John. I'll come back the opposite direction we went before. So any of the minor parties want to make a comment onto that? Yep, very quickly.
1 minute. We'll just do what the Liberal or Labor Party promised before and get the public service jobs in Gungahlin.
Great. Good evening, James. Thank you. Anna?
Hi, again, I did actually say equality for all, not just Gungahlin, but everyone across Canberra. And that means looking at jobs, getting jobs and opportunities, education and employment for everyone in Canberra. And that could be done through everything from looking after animals, planting, rejuvenating the grounds, secondary residences and the like, and looking at very economical and environmentally friendly but animal friendly jobs, looking at overpasses, looking at underpasses, looking at bridges. All these opportunities are there, and they just need the funding. Thank you.
In this country, there's always been a polarised debate between the economy and the ecology. With industrial cannabis, we can have full employment, and I'm not talking about crummy jobs in tourism and degrading shit like that. What I'm talking about are career developments in highly technical jobs. As early as 1941, Henry Ford built a car out of hemp plastic, had 10 times the impact resistance of steel. We want those sort of technical careers back in this country. Now, unfortunately for that narrow-minded little Facebook fellow, we don't have a specific employment thing for Gungahlin. We're looking at the whole country. We're looking at changes to this country that can in generational time still be yielding benefit. So I really do urge people to think a bit broader about what's important and start thinking about their unborn grandchildren instead of their bloody selves for a start.
Thank you. John?
Look, just briefly, I think Gungahlin interesting because it sort of demonstrates the failure of planning, largely on the part of the ACT government, I think, but also the fact that the Commonwealth allows offices to be built willy-nilly on Commonwealth land at the airport has effectively sucked employment out of the Gungahlin area. So the Gungahlin Town Centre was meant to have 10,000 office jobs. It didn't get them. And, other people have mentioned the issue of not enough roads going in at first. So our policy in Sustainable Australia is very much that before houses go in, there should be services for those people. And unfortunately, what you've seen in Gungahlin is something where that really hasn't been done. And it should have been done. Thank you.
Kim, it's not mandatory, but if you wish to make speak.
Yeah, no, just a very quick question, which is that most of the issues to do with funding here in the ACT and then the decisions that flow from that in the different parts of the ACT are a mix of the Commonwealth and territory decision making. So a lot of the specific decisions are territorially based, but the key issue, and one that has driven my proposal for doubling the number of senators, is being the apportionment of federal funding to the ACT being significant. And if we look at the last budget, 0.3% of infrastructure funding came to the ACT, which is not proportionate to the needs of the ACT. By guaranteeing 4 seats and therefore guaranteeing the lower quota of 20% of always having more than the major parties in the mix, we will be guaranteeing this territory its appropriate distribution of funds from which accountable decisions will be made for each of the areas, including Gungahlin.
Like many others, the Australian Progressives are very keen to bring Commonwealth government departments into Gungahlin. I mentioned raising my kids in Tuggeranong. When the government departments were moved into Tuggeranong, it brought much needed economic stimulus into that part of Canberra. It made a huge difference, so that can happen in Gungahlin as well. I also mentioned our policy of engagement, so we think it's really important to engage with the community and the business representatives in Gungahlin as well, together with ACT government representatives and federal government representatives to work on solutions and what is going to work and what are those incentives that we need to have to bring business into the Gungahlin region. Someone mentioned all the businesses moving out to Brindabella Park near the airport. That's because the rent's cheap and there's all these incentives. So let's work as a community to work out what those incentives are to bring employment into this district.
Any other candidates wish to add? No? All right, we'll move over to Natasha. Yep, okay, we'll come back to that.
Thank you. Sorry, we're just going down the lines. I'm Natasha from the Greens Party. Now, as a Gungahlin resident, I am also a little upset about the fact that Gungahlin has been taken for granted. I live in Moncrief. I'm still waiting for the Moncrief shops to be open. I don't think they've even sold the land yet. I love local. I am local. I believe in local. We need to support local. I am hoping to start my young family here in Gungahlin, and I hope that, when my future kids get to the age of getting their first job, I hope they can start working in a local Gungahlin shop or takeaway shop, as I started off in my country town. But thank you so much for that question. That is an absolutely valid and genuine question, and we do need more love in Gungahlin. Absolutely we do. We need more jobs. We need our own little economy here in Gungahlin because we have so much to offer and we need to stop being taken for granted. And thank you so much. I love you, Gungahlin.
David, you had it? Sorry, who was wanting to add?
Yeah, you first. Yeah.
Minute.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for the question. Yeah, as was pointed out, a lot of these issues are a mix of territory and federal government issues, and we clearly need more collaboration. We need 2 senators who are actually going into bat for people in the ACT. We can't afford to have one absentee senator when it comes to actually standing up for our community. I mentioned NBN upgrades. I think that has to be a priority for Gungahlin. The APS, we have to fight decentralisation and be working with the territory government to ensure that different departments and services, their offices are where people are living, and it really works for us as a city. Another thing that I think is a huge opportunity for us here in Canberra is to work, more support from the federal government to work with the AC government to help households electrify, to be able to afford an EV, to have battery storage. Across the ACT, we spend $950 million a year on fuel and electricity, and the majority of that is on foreign oil. A huge opportunity for us to be saving money at a household level, and that money that can then flow back into the Canberra community and our small businesses.
Thank you, David. Thanks, David. Okay, let's... Yep.
I'll be quick. Thank you. Let's not forget the community and the NGO sector. The APS is a great employer, and yes, it should come here, and perhaps there should be a smart hub. There's certainly smarter ways of working since we've had COVID, but I think our community and NGO sector is very important too, and Gungahlin's a great place. There's lots of people here, there's a great place for the sector to be here, and they should be supported to work here and employ people here and base their operations here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I mean, for the local resident in the Gungahlin, I'm not parachuted the politician or candidate from the parties, and if I'm elected, I would say I would put the employment of the locally as my priority or agenda, and I will establish their forums to gather the concerns and questions, issues, and also bring to the parliament to teach the opportunity for the local in Gungahlin. And also, as I say, I'm glad to say we can have an international school in Gungahlin district to provide opportunity for the local students and also attract the more international students, because we have 3 good universities in Canberra. We do have a fair amount of the international students for the tertiary education, but not enough for the secondary one. And also, I would like to say there will be a good hospital in Gungahlin area, like the Canberra Hospital in the Warden area and the Kawarri Hospital in Belconnen. And also, as I'm standing for the multiculturalism, I would like to say we can have a national multicultural center, either restructure the EPIC center, or we preferably good land, good location, close to the Gungahlin town center. And that's the good way for the infrastructure, and also the way to have more employment. So if I'm elected, I will. Okay. 1 minute. I will chase the fund from the. Okay, for the government. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
All right. We're going to run our minute out with the rest of the candidates here to my left, your right. That will complete the Q&A session as advertised, but what we'll do is I've asked all the candidates to stay until 8:30, so I'll have a discussion here and I'll give a microphone to entertain the people on Facebook. So we'll, if anybody wants to address the questions that Henley read out, here's your chance now.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Guy, Liberal Democrats. Okay, so, a lot of people have raised this federal versus local issue. So Where there's federal funding for federal infrastructure, that obviously is just a standard cost-benefit policy decision. So that's not an issue. The biggest thing, I think, is the vertical fiscal imbalance. So one of the key things we'll address is basically get rid of that imbalance. So get the taxes back to the local level, essentially. So we've had that policy in the past. When David was a senator, that's, I think, the key way of addressing that issue. Put the power back to the locals to actually figure out where the local jobs go.
So, obviously, jobs need to be local, and I agree with Guy. Cut taxes, help people put more money back in their pockets, but not just personal tax. Cut business tax. Allow businesses to actually want to employ more people, because what people don't realise is, unless you run a business, the biggest factor in employing people that you can change is actual wages. You know what your fixed overheads are. You know how much your rent is, your power is. But if you can sit there and go, well, I need to save money, well, the first thing that goes out the door is jobs. So if you allow people to businesses to put more money back in their pocket, then they will employ more people. But you need to have those facilities. You need to bring actual infrastructure in. So if you do an overpass, all of a sudden it's a lot easier for people to come in and out of Gungahlin. The Moncrief shops, there's plenty of shops that should be built and they haven't been built. I remember when Moncrief first started being built and they went, oh, there's going to be shops there. And I'm going, what, 6 years later? Still nothing there on that block of land? These things are very simple. And trust me, I deliver windows around Canberra. There's a lot of building around this town. People don't realise how much building and infrastructure is going out. Out the back of Denman, there's lots, but there's not being finished in the jobs.
Thanks very much, Tim. The three speakers remaining on the topic of investment in Gungahlin. Do you want to come back for more, Nassas?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'll take every little bit of attention I could get. Absolutely. No, thank you. Oh, stop it. No, thank you very much. And yeah, absolutely. I just want to reiterate that I am local. I believe in local and I love Gungahlin so much that I want to start my family here and live happily ever after. And I was just being so inspired listening to everyone speak. So thank you all for being here tonight. I hope we stay friends after this. So thank you.
And perhaps appropriately, I'll ask Nathan to speak to that, and then finally, current City Member Andrew Lee.
So I sort of addressed in my speech about, the 300 to 400 jobs that we've brought here through DHA, all of the investment. Just to that point about getting businesses here, that comes down to, as Kim rightly said, the ACT government and planning. So the ACT government has opted here for the quickest possible return. That means mostly residential and a little bit of mixed use. That also means that we did see development at the top of the hill down towards the lake that did start off with commercial units. There's now 0 commercial units there, but there is a childcare, so I mean that's a good start. But the reality is we need to have a proper conversation about planning here in the town centre, and that needs to be both between the federal government and also the local government here. We need to stop just focusing on the mixed use here, and I know the GCC has championed that. I've been in this room multiple times while that has been debated. I have seen Chris Steele being grilled. I've seen Minister Gentleman being grilled on that exact issue. But that is certainly something that we are committed to. We are certainly committed to investing in this region. I think that's been shown.
And finally, Andrew Lee. And so this will be the end of the formal Q&A.
Well, thanks, Peter, and thanks to everyone online and everyone attending for a terrific forum. Of course, I'll continue, if elected, to campaign to bring more federal public service jobs to the ACT. But I'd be remiss if I didn't also talk about some of the other policies from federal Labor that will create jobs. We'll have a full employment summit bringing together business and unions and a full employment white paper. Our aged care policy will see more aged care workers in homes in order to provide the care that Australians need, and 24/7 nurses. Our climate policy will create tens of thousands of direct jobs, including in the construction of a community battery in Casey. Our Housing Australia Future Fund will construct 30,000 social and affordable homes, which will create jobs as well as helping to create more supply of housing. In the last Liberal budget, the ACT got a fifth of its fair share of infrastructure funding. And I can't think of a better way of addressing that than by having Katie Gallagher as Australia's Finance Minister. I cannot imagine Katie sitting around the budget table and considering bringing down a budget where the ACT didn't get its fair share. No one should take Katie's re-election for granted. She is a former Chief Minister. She is not only one of the most experienced politicians I know, but also the nicest. And so you need to make sure you vote Katie Gallagher number 1 in the Senate if you want to see a great deal for the ACT.
All right. So as I mentioned, that does bring our Q&A portion to an end, unfortunately, but I have asked the candidates to be around for the next 15 minutes or so. Would encourage you to stay on. Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's always difficult when it's a bit cold and a bit wet, so I do appreciate it. Thank you particularly for the attendance and the kind words from the candidates, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. I'll stay on the microphone. I've got a couple of questions I want to ask a few people, so I'll see if I can maintain a lively banter for those who are still online, if they want to stay online. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure having you along tonight. So, Andrew Lee, I was reading the news.com.
So were we doing this for the Facebook people?
Yeah, this will be Facebook, and we would probably stand in front of the camera. In front of the camera. So I was reading news.com this afternoon, and the State of the Nation survey was in, and for the seat offender, the number one issue was cost of living. 46% of respondents said cost of living was their biggest issue, and the biggest cost in most homes is the cost of the home. So it seems to me putting more money in at the bottom, giving grants and fueling the rate of housing cost growth is really the issue. So how do we, what are the levers the government has available to it to actually do something about housing affordability in Australia?
Yeah. So Peter, I think it's a great question because it goes to the role that the Commonwealth plays in housing. This Liberal government has essentially chosen to step out of the issue of housing. They haven't had cabinet responsibility for housing, and they've gotten rid of the National Housing Supply Council. We'd bring that back. There we go. We'd bring that back with Jason Clare as the Housing Minister, working out of cabinet. But also, we'd ensure that we had that Housing Australia Future Fund, $10 billion fund, in order to increase housing supply. And then we take this really clever idea that's been run in a bunch of the states of a Help to Buy scheme. We have shared equity, in this case for a help up to 40% of the cost of the home. And so that's a massive benefit to people who might be able to afford a $500,000 mortgage, but wouldn't be able to afford a $900,000 mortgage. And I strike those people all the time, right? You know, I remember a police officer and a nurse, or a couple who came up to me one Saturday morning outside Gungahlin Marketplace, and they said, look, we can afford the mortgage just if we both stay and work. But if we take a bit of time off to have a kid, we wouldn't be able to pay the mortgage. So what's the answer? And Help to Buy is part of it. But what do you think? I mean, you've been thinking about these issues hard. What would you do?
Well, I just see my kids and other friends of the family, and the market just seems terribly overheated. There just seems to be, to me, and I'm no expert in this, there just is too much money in Australia invested in housing as a form of generating wealth. So, I know lots of, people I know whose future retirement depends on the continued growth of housing and the investments in housing, and because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, more people pour more money into it. And it seems to be an aberration. It's not normal in a lot of economies to have so much investment money going into housing, and it seems to me that incentives like capital tax discount, the other levers that exist, be able to offset the cost of loans on investment projects, all those mechanisms make it more overtly attractive to invest in housing. And so people are buying houses to make money, not buying houses to live in. And it seems to me that would help cool the market down and make some of these other mechanisms much more effective.
I remember talking to a mate in Germany who said the difference between the way in which continental Europeans think about housing and the way in which the Anglosphere thinks about it is in continental Europe we think about it as a consumption good, in the Anglo-Saxon countries you think about it as an investment good. And as soon as you start thinking about it as an investment, then suddenly you get the sort of effects you're talking about. I don't know how you unwind that, but I think that is part of the reason why we've seen such rapid house price growth over recent years.
All right, well, I'll leave that as a challenge task,
Yeah,
should you be elected.
Mate, thanks again for putting on the forum, and thanks for all you do. No one pays you to run the Gungahlin Community Council, and it's a huge benefit to the local community. You know, we see it in Yerriby Pond, we see it in the...
Well, I must say, it's one of the things that's great about Yerriby Pond and the work that we have been able to do with other groups is there are groups of people popping up. It's not just about the community council. There's people trying to build microforests. There's advocates trying to get mountain bike trails into the region. Park Run. We're a double park run city. So, look, I mean, there's a lot of positives here, and I do think we do have some serious planning challenges. ACT government's in the process of trying to redo its planning strategy, and there's a Canberra-wide level of great concern around that process. So we'll see how that goes in the months. But thanks for taking along tonight. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Cheers. Right, we'll see who else is here tonight. Everyone's engaged in a lively discussion, so it may be necessary to wrap up. I'm just trying to find someone else to talk to. Let's go and have a talk to John over here. I had a chat. Jared, do you mind speaking for a few seconds? We're still online.
Yeah, what should I say?
Well, I'd be really interested to know how you think the Greens would be placed to... How effective a lever do you think they can be on whichever party might be hold majority power?
You know, we've been in government before in Tasmania and in the ACT for the last nearly a decade. We've been very effective here in the ACT, and we've learned a lot from our time in Tasmania, our time under the Rudd-Gillard government. We've matured, we've learned a lot about how to negotiate and how to work with government. So I think we're very effective, and I think it's possible that we could do a great job. Thanks so much.
We'll head back to the camera. Yeah, sorry. So... No, we end up with this empty picture, but no, so we just, it's there. So one of the great examples of a coalition arrangement is here in the ACT, and I have heard some talk that the Greens haven't held the line, that they've become assimilated with the ALP, and I guess how do you fight that? I mean, how do you take arguably a principled position in and defend it against all the other variables that a coalition partner might bring to bear?
Yeah, I think people can say that or make those kind of assumptions when they're on the outside and they're not on the inside. When you're on the inside, you negotiate agreement with the government, and it's about keeping the government in power.
Yep.
So you might negotiate, not to hold back supply, these kinds of things, because it's very important to enable the government to operate.
Yep.
But in terms of policy, we've always held very strong on our own value system, our own policy. And from the climate policy, you can see that the Greens have actually pushed the ACT government a long, long way, and much, much further than any other government. We are the first government in Australia to have 100% renewables to reduce our emissions by 2025. We've done amazing work here. Some of the other things we've got I think we've got hugely progressive policies in social justice and economic reform, but they have to to be weighed up with the value system and the policies of the Labor government. So that's all part of the negotiation. And sometimes there's compromise. I'm not a member of that government, so I don't know what happens. But people do say on the outside, oh, the Greens didn't do enough or the Labor Party didn't do enough. I think you have to be pragmatic when you're a politician. There's only so much you can do. And there's only so much change and transformation that people can take, actually. So you have to do things a step at a time.
I think that's a key piece around change. And I remember watching Four Corners on Monday night, and they were talking about the need to really become truly green. We'll have to do more mining to unlock rare earth minerals and other things that are crucial to electrifying our economy. And then we end up with exactly the issues you raised. And we've got to balance the need to mine these crucial elements to enable us to be more green as an economy against, obviously, potentially damaging the environment. And
that involves science and technology and the development of research of that. And I think if we fund that and we fund that well, we can do that well. Yep. Australia has the capability to be a very progressive country in this area. And why
a superpower.
We've not funded science and research well enough. We really need to do it much more. Innovation.
As a son of a university academic, I have to say I totally agree. There needs to be more fundamental research.
I agree.
Well, thank you very much for speaking for us tonight.
Leaving the business card with the
Thanks, mate. We're going to hit the road. I've got your kids at home wanting to be ready to hear some stories.
Yeah, okay, sorry, it's a little shabby. Not you. What does it look like? It's almost certainly